In 1986, when the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded, the residents of Pripyat fled their homes in panic, taking only documents thinking they would return in a few days, but they never could, and today the city is frozen death, with radioactive dust covering walls, trees, and asphalt, with peeling walls and mold soaked with cancer-causing doses, with air that is dangerous to breathe, with patches of earth that glow in the dark, with silence broken only by clicks of a Geiger counter, a place where you cannot stay neither by night nor by day, because without protection, death is not immediate, but it is guaranteed.
Footsteps.
On the surface, it looks like a typical busy African city with traffic, markets, and noise, but beneath this shell lies a sanitary trap. Because in 2022, an outbreak of the Sudan strain of Ebola started here, one of the deadliest viruses, spreading through touch, sweat, or blood, with people afraid to breathe, hospitals overflowing, bodies in black bags, boarded houses, patrols with loudspeakers, doctors scarce, no vaccine, and survival minimal, even if you are not infected. Because panic and chaos rule, leaving a tourist defenseless with one contact enough to start the countdown of life in hours. On the shore of the Bay of Bengal lies a massive ship graveyard where old vessels from around the world are dragged and dismantled entirely by hand, with workers in sandals on wrecks inhaling asbestos and oil fumes, bathing in toxic water, the town under chemical haze, the soil filled with mercury, lead, and heavy metals, and the well water smelling of oil, so a tourist will find nothing to see except death on rusting steel, where one cut brings infection, one breath leaves dust in your lungs that can never be removed, and people here live short lives while a stranger might break down in less than a day. This is a city of nearly 1 million people built directly above an active volcano, with cracks beneath where lava has already flowed, burning through the center in 2002 while people slept. And that was only one threat, because here there is no stability. Armed gangs, hunger, refugee camps, cholera and malaria outbreaks, and even the United Nations cannot keep control, while water is contaminated, medicine a luxury, and humanitarian missions often do not come back. So for a tourist, stepping outside can mean not returning at all, because here, death is the norm. This is more than cold. It is a place where outside a vehicle or a heated cabin you die, where temperatures below -60 are considered ordinary, where metal, machinery, and even skin break apart, where breath turns to frost and eyes freeze within minutes, where diesel fuel turns to jelly, phones die, tea in a thermos turns to ice, and locals know if the engine stalls, chances are almost none, since help is dozens of kilometers away, and here you die not from attack or infection, but simply because you stepped outside without heat, making this a deadly trap for any tourist. The capital of Yemen has long since stopped functioning as a real city and has become a battlefield of coalition bombing, street fighting, cholera epidemics, and the collapse of healthcare, where water is rationed, power only from generators if there's fuel, where people live in ruins and children walk barefoot on shards, where food exists only on the black market and pharmacies are empty, while armed groups rule and you never know who controls a neighborhood, and a foreigner cannot survive here, not because he is weak, but because nobody survives, since life in Sana'a is endless struggle for survival. This city has no rules, with neither police nor army in control, everything run by armed gangs, where nights are filled with gunfire and days with fear, where people are afraid to leave home because they can be stopped and robbed, where water is fetched from the river and food comes at the risk of life, where escape is impossible because the roads are dangerous and planes rarely fly, where medical help is only for those with money or connections, and even humanitarian missions work under armed guard, so living here means constant struggle, and a tourist would not last even a day. This city feels like it is not from our planet, with cameras on every corner, empty streets, and people afraid to speak. Everything under strict control, where if you are a foreigner, you are escorted everywhere and every step is checked. Where one careless word can land you in prison, where you cannot go out without permission, cannot take photos, cannot talk to locals, and where everything is built on fear. So tourists cannot normally enter, and if you do, you may never return, because in this city you cannot be yourself and you cannot survive if you are even slightly free. Once this was a capital, but now it is ruins, after earthquakes and protests destroyed the state and order, leaving gangs in control while police are too scared to come out, leaving water drawn from dirty sources and almost no electricity, with people living in half-collapsed houses or on the streets, with robberies, extortion, kidnappings daily. So if you are not local, you are a target, and even with money, you are unsafe. Because this is a city where nobody feels secure and a tourist simply will not make it back home. At first glance, it is just a mountain town, but it once hosted uranium mining and the waste was simply buried nearby, now shifting in the soil and washing down with rain so that if a landslide happens, radioactive dust will flow into the river, and already the water is dangerous. While people live on contaminated ground, eat local produce, and drink from wells, all looking normal from the outside while radiation builds in their bodies, and a tourist will never be told what is safe, so you might just walk and carry away something invisible, because here, death is not instant, but certain. This city became a symbol of the Syrian war, where it all began and where fighting still continues, with half the town in rubble, with homes without windows or doors, with people living in basements without light or water, with armed men patrolling and nobody knowing who belongs to whom, with no schools, no hospitals, no food. So entering means disappearing. And if you are an outsider, you almost have no chance to escape because there is no place for tourists, and every day is survival with no hope of peace. This city on the edge of the desert is where thousands gather to attempt crossing the Sahara toward Europe, paying smugglers, riding old trucks where many die of heat and thirst, while inside there is only dirt, dust, and deceit, with trade in people, goods, and anything possible, with no laws and police turning a blind eye, where even locals live in fear, and if you are a tourist, you stand out and nobody will help, and one mistake can make you vanish. Because in the desert outside, no one will hear your cries. Electricity, no jobs, where people live in huts made of rags, carrying water on their heads and cooking food on fires, where doctors are rare and medicine luxury, where armed groups surround the city and inside hunger and poverty rule, where when fighting starts there is nowhere to run, where nobody saves anyone. Survival depends only on strength and connections, and a tourist here would not endure, not because he is weak, but because the city itself kills. Officially, it is a city, but in reality, an endless camp where tens of thousands of Rohingya Muslims live, unrecognized as humans by Myanmar's government, with no passports, no jobs, no right to move. Soldiers, outside and inside, only tents. Heat, hunger, and disease, with malaria, dysentery, skin infections spread, no medicine, dirty water, food once a day if lucky, and any escape attempt ending in arrest or disappearance, while the UN writes reports but nothing changes. So a tourist cannot come here, and that is a blessing, because Sittwe is not a place but a dead end of humanity where survival is not about strength but about how long until you break. This is not just desert. but a stone furnace. With Ouarzazate known as the gateway to the Sahara, where by day asphalt melts, and by night the cold is like a refrigerator, where winds lift sand that fills eyes, nose, and lungs, where shade doesn't save you because it's almost none, where the city may look beautiful with clay walls, old streets, and cinematic landscapes, but for life it is a trap. With water trucked in, electricity often cut, and medical care only far and expensive, where if you lose yourself in the desert, there is no chance. And even locals die if they stray off course, making Ouarzazate a place where tourists see Instagram, but locals live the struggle of survival every day. Here even the sand burns and the air feels like a dusty wall, and in such places you will not survive. So if you want to know where else you should not look for adventures, subscribe to the channel 10 Minutes, because we keep it short, straight to the point, and only about what truly matters.